For episode 2 of Playtest Diaries, I tested the Steam playtest version of End of End after previously playing the browser version. Overall, this session felt like a noticeable improvement. The Steam client ran smoothly, combat was easier to understand, gold rewards felt much better than before, and the game kept me engaged enough that I wanted to keep doing additional runs. The biggest positive change was the economy. Compared to episode 1, gold generation felt much healthier. Seeing gold amounts clearly listed in chests was a major improvement, because it made the reward loop easier to track and understand. After further review, I originally thought gold was disappearing during runs, but that was not a bug. The gold changes were tied to the new life origin I had rolled, and I only noticed the effect at odd times, which created the misconception that gold was vanishing. Combat also felt better once I understood the systems more clearly. At first, I thought the combat speed might be too fast, but after more time with the game, I changed my mind. Once I understood what was proccing, how speed was affecting turn orders, and how different relics interacted, the pace felt fine. I would not recommend slowing down combat at this point. The bigger issue is early clarity, not actual combat speed. The combat feedback is one of the strongest parts of the current build. Being able to see what causes damage, what relics are activating, and how effects are triggering makes the game much easier to learn. Relic stacking also became clearer during the session once I realized picking up duplicate relics upgrades them. That system feels good and gives players a reason to care about repeat relics instead of treating them as wasted options. There were also several relics and build paths that felt fun to experiment with. Mirror Gauntlet stood out as one of my favorite relics from the session, because it created a clear and satisfying build direction. Lifesteal relics also felt strong in a good way, because they fit the nature of the game. Speed builds, bleed builds, and sustain builds all looked like they had potential, which is a good sign for replayability. The main issue I noticed was item visibility and potion usability. I realized late in the session that I had potions available, but was not noticing them because the item panel sits in an area I do not naturally look at during gameplay. I also became confused when trying to use the potion hotkey while interacting with the item panel. The H key does work from the main map screen, but it does not feel connected when I was focused on the item inventory. This made it feel like the potion hotkey was broken until it tested further. My strongest UI suggestion is to allow movable or customizable side panels. Even something simple like letting the item panel sit above the quest log or closer to the player's main focus area would help a lot. During a combat-heavy run, I found myself watching the dungeon and combat information while missing the bottom right item area. For a game where consumables can decide whether a run continues or ends, potion visibility matters. Torchlight clarity is another area that could use more explanation. I could tell that light and darkness were affecting combat, but I was not always sure exactly what buffs or debuffs were being applied. At different points, it looked like enemies were gaining stats in darkness or that the player had different advantages while the torches were stronger. A tooltip, codex entry, or a clear combat log message explaining torch state effects would make this system easier to understand. Torch distribution also felt inconsistent between floors. Some stages had plenty of torches, sometimes maybe even too many, while others felt very sparse. That may be intentional, but my expectation as a player is that early floors would generally provide more torch support while later floors become more punishing. If the map generation is meant to be more unpredictable, that's fine, but the difficulty curve may feel uneven when a lower floor has fewer resources than a later one. Mimics were another small design note. I like the idea of mimics, and they are fun when they trick the player up close. However, some mimics seem to aggro from far enough away that the surprise was reduced. Personally, I think mimics are more effective when the player gets close enough to believe they are about to receive a reward before the mimic reveals itself. One possible future balance concern is that attacks can continue after an enemy appears to reach 0 or negative HP. This may not be a problem right now, but it could become an issue as more relics are added. If future relics trigger from attacks, hits, kills, healing, or damage events, extra attacks after an enemy is already dead could create unintended stacking or balance problems. It may be worth reviewing whether combat should end immediately once enemy HP reaches 0. After further review, the Mirror Knight's ability display should not be treated as an issue. I originally missed what stat it copied during the playthrough, but the game does appear to display that information properly. Overall, this was a positive playtest. The Steam client was stable, the gold economy felt much improved, combat became more readable over time, and several relics created interesting build ideas. To wrap it up, today's main focus was on item panel visibility, potion hotkey interaction, torchlight explanation, torch distribution between floors, mimic aggro, and reviewing extra attacks after enemy death for future relic balance.